Shifty Schiff was interviewed by Crystal Ball. She did some actual journalism to him. Did she? She inflicted him with some actual journalism? Huh. Heated debate with Tatem and Israel DSA.
Do disagree with the DSA. I mean, their general position is that the U.S. is responsible for most of the conflict in the world. And I've heard...
Perish the thought.
These arguments about whether you're talking about Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, that everything they're doing is merely in reaction to us. And I don't agree with that. I think we've done some bad things without any question.
Okay, so the problem here, okay, so here's the problem. North Korea is not doing anything to us. Iran, we literally started this war. Russia is complicated. China's not doing anything to us. Like, the war we're in right now is one that we've unambiguously, we've practically declared war on Cuba as well.
But I do think we face threats that we need to be in a position to deter. So I'm not, going to say that we shouldn't ever have a National Defense Authorizing Act. The second piece of this that I'm curious,
well, I'm
curious what people think about this.
Just to pause on that point for 1 second. The argument I'm making, and I think other people, is not that we should never have a National Defense Authorization Act. It's that in this moment, Democrats, as you know, have precious little leverage that they can use as Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Trump is prosecuting what is an illegal war. There was a war powers resolution that was passed through the House and the Senate that he is in violation of.
Just to be clear, as big a part of the problem, even if this war was legal, it would still be a disastrous, stupid, terrible, horrible idea.
We 100% agree on that. But it is also illegal. Yeah. So why not use this moment when they would dearly like Democratic votes?
I'm not disagreeing with you on that at all.
Yeah. So you think that, so you won't support an NDA and you don't think the rest of the Democratic Party?
There will probably be some who will and some who won't. I mean, and again, how do we use that leverage in an effective way? And keep in mind also the National Defense Authorizing Act doesn't actually fund anything. It's not the appropriations bill, it's the authorizing bill, which is the other point I've been trying to get to. Congress needs to exercise oversight of the Department of Defense. We've got a provision in the bill that would bring back collective bargaining for all DoD employees, which we got put into the bill. We've got a variety of different things that fence Secretary Hegseth's budgets.
To send a message to Benjamin Netanyahu. I'd love for you, there's actually been a lot of pro-Israel folks who've been attacking you, saying you gave in to pressure tactics, et cetera. I'd love for you to explain your own words how you came to this place, because I do think your vote and others are quite extraordinary, given where consensus within Washington has been on the relationship with Israel. You had even Nancy Pelosi voting for this amendment.
She's being very cordial with him.
Yourself, given your position and your track record, you're someone who's been supported by AIPAC. Just take us through
This is going to take a minute.
That's fine. Take your time.
Okay, because the real challenge here is what Israel has historically been. Okay, Israel was historically a democratic state in the middle of no democratic states.
Please, God, don't do the fucking Netanyahu's government thing.
They were a very strong ally of the U.S. We partnered with them on a variety of different things, counterterrorism being the biggest thing during the ISIS fight and elsewhere. So you've got that history.
Israel really did not help out a lot with ISIS, like at all. I mean, ISIS was literally created in large part due to U.S./Israeli destabilization of the Middle East. The idea that a hyper-far-right Islamist renewed like caliphate needs to take over the Middle East, it's in large part a response to U.S. and Israeli meddling. Like the idea that kind of reactionary, like the white blood cells defending the Middle East against foreign incursion, that's the idea.
Historical relationship. And then you've got the reality of what Israel is living in. And that is that they are the only, well, except for Ukraine, they're the only country in the world, that from the day they were founded, people have been trying to eliminate them. I mean, there's no other country in the world that
just completely untrue on every level, meaningless non-statement. Wrong on every, for one, not everyone's tried to eliminate Israel. Israel enjoys the protection of the world's superpower and Europe, and also has peaceful relations with the majority of its neighbors, at least now. And also there are countries out there that have had much more antagonistic relationships with the neighbors. Okay,
Yemen and Saudi Arabia fought, but the Houthis never said that Saudi Arabia didn't have a...
Same argument Rhodesia used. Exact same argument Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa used. Where, oh, guys, help us. We're the lone bastion of democracy in this in darkest Africa. You know, same shit.
Right to exist. Okay, very existence wasn't on the line. You know, when Israel came into being, from that very moment, they have been attacked constantly. And yeah, it comes down to a fundamental question: does Israel have a right to exist? Now, I'll tell you, and this is
no. We don't ask this question about any other country. Totally fucking meaningless country.
Absolutely.
Or sorry, well, yes, also, but also meaningless question.
Absolutely, the DSA position is that they don't. Okay.
Well, let's pause on that. I want to get to the DSA, and I don't want to fight you on all of this, but I want you to get to your point.
I got to get through this.
Yeah.
I got to get through this.
Okay.
So you know, if you have a situation where Israel is threatened on all sides, and I know it's like, well, no, it's not saying they don't have a right to exist, just they have to let all the Palestinians back in, and then effectively the Jews no longer control Israel.
Well, that kind of gives the game away a little bit, huh? Oh, like him feigning the DSA position. I'm not saying Israel doesn't exist. They just have to like let Palestinians in and no longer have it be a Jewish ethno-state. Okay, so you're like pro ethno-state. You're pro apartheid. What do you? It's like how the effort at comms always fails because these guys are never willing to like lie hard enough. They lie really, really, really hard, but they can never utter that big final lie, the one that might actually allow them to defend their position, that they don't want Israel to be an ethno-state. You know what I mean? Like it's totally, it's like the way Nazis have been successful in infiltrating the Republican Party is because they have been successful in cloaking racial nationalism with civic nationalism. The reason Nazis were able to gain a foothold in the Republican Party, it wasn't just because Republicans are racist, they are, but also because Nazis were able to bite their tongue and pretend that they were really just fighting for, like the idea that their problem is with illegal immigrants, for example, you know? But the Zionists can't do this, because they're fucking deranged. So even these like liberal, oh hey, I'm here to reach the middle, I have a problem with Netanyahu's government, whatever, these liberal critics of Netanyahu's regime still come back around to like, well, of course it has to be an ethno-state. It can't be a fair, equal liberal democracy.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but don't you, like, isn't the idea of equal rights for all ethnicities something that you, in theory, support as a Democrat?
Well, sure, but
well, sure, but like not here, obviously. I'm not paid to say here.
Actual result of this is, if you say there should be equal rights within Israel, but if
notice how instantly he starts stabbing, unambiguously advocates for an ethno-state. He's like, well, the DSA wants the Palestinians back in, so it's no longer a Jewish state. And then as soon as he's questioning this, he starts flustering because they're paid to repeat the lines. That's why he said, hold on, let me finish. He knows the little AIPAC briefer he's been given. He's not paid to like defend it or iterate on his positions. They're just given a flat text, you know?
Israel they cease to exist as a country.
No, they cease to exist.
This is literally what white nationalists say about America when we let non-white immigrants in. It is 1 for 1. It is exactly 1 for 1. That America ceases to be America if you let non-white immigrants in. That birthright citizenship has to be overturned because the founding fathers couldn't envision that the fundamental American character has to be preserved. And by that, they mean like white Europeans, you know? 1 to 1. But here's your liberal. Here's liberalism, folks. Here's your liberal.
As a Jewish ethno-state. That's very different from ceasing to exist as a country.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. Yeah, but like, come on. Come on. What? Come on.
Hold on. Stop.
My other question was, why is
no, we got to drill
an
down.
issue for U.S. taxpayers?
We got to drill down on that.
Okay.
All right.
First of all, come on.
To exist as an ethno-state. So basically, Jews would live in Palestine and be governed by the Palestinians, by the Arabs. Okay, and
this is it's literally just white nationalist logic. Here's your liberals. Hey, liberals. Hey, come get your guy. Hey, liberals.
And maybe that's just what has to happen in the minds of some people, but understand the consequences of it. Understand why Israel was created in the first place, so that the Jews would have some place to go, okay?
Right,
and
but
to just blithely say, well, yeah, it'll go away and it'll be fine. So that's the point.
He can't even, not even rhetorically, he can't imagine Israel not being an ethno-state. Like, to him, Israel no longer being governed and controlled entirely by Jews just means the end of Israel. Which is, by the way, like, that's the reason why I say that liberal Zionism, like, a la, Blander, is meaningless. Because for all Zionists, or at least all politically relevant ones, Israel can only be an ethno-state. If you say you want Israel to exist, but an Israel of equal rights and equal Israel, you might as well say Israel doesn't exist, you know? And that's, I mean, he's conflating Israel not being a Jewish ethno-state with it not existing, which, like, hey, if that's your position, then yeah, I guess it doesn't have a right to exist. Thanks for making my point, I guess.
Okay, well, first of all, you're mischaracterizing my position, but
well, what is your
second
position?
of all,
No, what is your position?
Second of all, you're ignoring that Israel was not created and a land with no people. Land.
No. I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't. No,
there were people there that were displaced.
I think that, like, really, what you have to do here is really hone in on the fact that he gets uncomfortable when you point out he's advocating for an ethno-state. You should say, like, is this not what neo-Nazis say about America? That America has a fundamentally white character and that you erase it by bringing it? Like, this is one for one what they say. It's the rhetoric of every ethno-nationalist group that has ever existed. We have to use the apparatus of the state to protect our ethnic group, our culture, because otherwise it will be erased by the evil foreign hordes that will come in and abuse our kindness and charity and demographically outpace us and then, like, destroy us. It's one to one. Yeah, he can't defend his positions.
Very few countries ever were.
Nakba.
Yeah,
there is a dispute over land.
Yes.
And the Israel today, which I think is what you were getting to, is an apartheid ethno-state that, and I don't think you use this language, but that is in the process of committing a genocide. So we can, we can debate the Israel of the past and the various historical interpretations of how we got to this place. But I think you're correct when you say we have to deal with the.
But if you said that to him, he'd object to that characterization, you see? So again, the problem is because AIPAC just hands these guys, like, approved talking points, he can't actually argue that Israel shouldn't be an ethno-state. The normal thing for a Nazi to do here, and I consider him ideologically a Nazi, he's defending Nazism as far as I'm concerned. The smart thing for a Nazi to do here would be to lie and do the civic nationalist bit. You know what I mean? Like, say, oh, well, obviously Israel can't let literally everyone in. There have to be, like, laws to govern the process of allowing for citizenship. But of course, I think Israel should be an equal state, da-da-da. But he can't do that because he's a Nazi and he's being given talking points by Nazis. They're too shameless to actually give up the goat on this. They have to just keep reaffirming it. He will not allow the advocacy for Israel as like a liberal democracy. It has to be an ethno-state. You know what I mean?
Reality of today. And, I would argue that it's not just the Netanyahu government. We can certainly argue that point. Yeah. But, we have Jake Sullivan, who just came out and said that he regrets the Biden policy of the bear hug. He thinks they should have done more to restrain Israel. And I'm wondering if you have any regrets, because now you're voting in a somewhat different way, both with the NDAA shift in position, with the Massey Amendment saying, hey, we should blockade. I want to send a message to Netanyahu. At the peak of the Gaza.
Yeah, but Israel's explicitly ethnically nationalist. One can't even make that argument for them the way American nationalists sometimes try. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, if he was smart, he would lie here. But Zionists don't lie about that because they're so proud of their ethno-state. You know what I mean? Like, Zionists will lie on everything. They lie nonstop. But they won't lie. They won't go that final distance and make the effective lie, the one where they say they would be okay with Palestinian citizenship being equalized, like no longer having an apartheid state. They're too shameless.
Onslaught. You had a complete siege. You had entire neighborhoods that were leveled. They created the largest population of child amputees. Do you have any regrets about your votes during that time period?
I don't, because everyone forgets about October 7th. Everyone forgets about what Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran have done, and their desire is to wipe out the state of Israel and all the Jews living there. Is that not? I mean, that's in Hamas.
It's just 1-to-1, man. It's 1-to-1. And in addition to, like, the disgusting subservience here, it's literally just the same shit Republicans say.
Hamas's charter, and Hamas is still extant. They're still doing that. I don't like the way Israel decided to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Clearly you do. Like, you clearly have no ethical qualms here, like, whatsoever.
But the solution being proposed is and this is the consequence of what you're saying is, sorry, we had this idea back in 1948. We were going to give you a state, and that way you could protect yourself against all.
Like historians, or I shouldn't say historians. I should say history, because historians really shouldn't be making ethical judgments like this. But history is going to consider talking points like this to be the same as Nazis who pearl clutch over the Dresden bombings. Did innocent civilians die during the Dresden bombings? Yeah. Shame that Nazi Germany did all the shit that led to it. Did October 7th lead to civilians getting killed? Yeah, and that does suck. It's bad. It's bad when civilians die. Did Israel do that shit? I mean, yeah. Like, Germany didn't bomb Dresden directly, but they sure as shit brought about the conditions that led to Dresden being bombed. No one's falling for this anymore. This rhetoric falls completely flat in its face. This only lines up with like the interests of the Zionist consultant class. The idea that like the average Democrat is falling for rhetoric like this now in the year of our Lord 2026, when everyone has been completely burnt out in it. No one cares. No one believes in this, it's totally unconvincing and such a phenomenal representation of why Democrats are faltering and have such low approval nationally, They only do well in specific elections despite the reputation of the Democratic Party broadly, not because of it. It's because of shit like this. Republicans are willing to tailor their language to the interests they create in people. Democrats have failed to make the average Democrat as, pro-ethno-state as them. So this rhetoric falls flat.
This tax didn't work out, so go back to Europe, go wherever. This just isn't going to work anymore.
I think the question,
and I don't think you understand
why not just be like, I don't know, a liberal democracy in the Middle East, and then like if people attack you, you can defend yourself normally. Why the whole ethno-state, apartheid, open-air concentration camp, Gaza, West Bank, illegal settlement thing?
Difficult that is to just go, yeah, I guess that's fine. Because
no, I think the question, let me, and this is not, this is my perspective, but I think this is also what the Democratic Party base in particular and most of the country view.
Do you think Israelis would also be anti-white / Christian immigrants / expats? I'm not sure what you mean. Israel is a white supremacist country. They are also broadly anti-Christian, yes. Why wouldn't they be? It's a far-right Jewish ethno-state. They think they're the chosen people. Like, I would expect Islamic extremists to be anti-Christian as well, and Christian extremists typically are pretty anti-Semitic. It just seems to be part and parcel of religious extremism.
At this point is, why should our tax dollars, given all the things in the world and all the things in our country,
that's why I voted for the Massey Amendment.
Spent in much more effective ways.
Exactly.
Why
Charlie's getting flustered because he keeps interrupting her.
Should that be going to prop up an ethno-state that is an apartheid state? And I wonder if you agree with that characterization, that has been committing, if you don't want to say genocide, certainly war crimes with that tax money.
That's fine. Yeah. Look, no, that's why I voted for the Massey Amendment. I don't think we should be sending that money over there. But look, I have concerns about Hamas, about Hezbollah, that people don't seem to share. Let's say that this plays out the way you describe, and okay, there is no Jewish ethno-state, and then the consequence of that is there is no Jewish.
See, again, he is saying the word ethno-state positively. Oh, let's see if you let's see what happens if you DSA types, you crazy lefties, get what you want, and now there's no ethno-state. You get your liberal. Hey, everyone. Hey, we got a liberal over here. Hey, everyone, come get your mans. We got a liberal over here with liberal beliefs.
State. Basically, you have the Palestinians as they would now be governing that area, and that means Hamas would be governing that area.
Wrong on every level. No. If it was an equal state, it would be Israel, and it would be governed jointly by Palestinians and Israelis who would both have the ability to vote, like a democracy, which you are supposed to believe in. 2, Hamas has for years de facto controlled Gaza because of Israel's meddling, where they undermined the Palestinian Authority and propped up Hamas as the de facto government in that region. For 3, why would Hamas want to operate as like a parallel militant government when they could just run for office legitimately under a parallel democracy? Like, why would Hamas need to be the ruling party for the Palestinians if they were incorporated? This would be like saying enfranchising freed slaves in the South would mean that like John Brown would be killing people with impunity. Like that's like if we gave the slaves the right to vote, if we freed them, then the former slaves would just run around killing people. They would just vote, actually. because that's what they want. I mean, they probably also want like freedom and land and stuff. Be a lot cooler if he was. It would be a lot cooler if after the Civil War, you just had John Brown types getting to do whatever they wanted. Yeah, for sure. But we didn't.
Do you have any problem with that? Do you have any problem with Hamas suddenly becoming a much more powerful entity and having the country, you know, from the river to the sea?
Like, what does this mean? What is it? Hamas? How is enfranchising Palestinians in Israel make Hamas a more? I could explain this. And by the way, I hope you all understand how fucking insane this would sound if it was applied to the logic of literally any other country. Like, if we had legally apartheid in America right now, this would be the equivalent of arguing that like black nationalist lynch gangs would take over the country if black people were given the right to vote. It's absolutely insane, but it's not unfamiliar to me. I've heard this rhetoric before from neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis, the alt-right online, were obsessed, and still are, with the narrative of racial revenge. The idea that if black people are ever given political prominence or power in the United States, they would use it as an opportunity to seek revenge against white people. That the displacement and disempowerment of non-whites is necessary because if they're ever given the ability to do to us what we've done to them, they will do it. Hey, we got a liberal over here. Come get your liberal, everyone. Hey, folks, I got a are there any, like, I don't know, neo-lib globalist shill types that can explain this to me? Can somebody explain this to me? I don't understand. Do you think there might be a bit of an identity crisis in the Democratic Party where the average Democratic voter is a liberal and the average, like, this guy is a fucking neo-Nazi? Can somebody explain this to me? Like, we do, like, unironically, we do understand the average DSA type is closer to the Democratic electorate than this guy, right? Like, if you sat this guy down in a room and you sat the DSA guy down and you said, hey, are you pro-ethno-state? Do you think apartheid is justified to prevent racial revenge from the underclass? I think the DSA guy would probably express positions closer to the majority of the Democratic electorate. This guy, on the other hand,
will now be a Hamas-run state on the Mediterranean. Are you okay with that?
First of all, I'm not convinced that that would be the reality.
This is just an insane, like, that the insanely wealthy, powerful Israeli government would fall to Hamas? What is, I don't even understand what argument he's making here, that if you enfranchise Palestinians, Hamas will take over Israeli nuclear facility. I don't understand what he's even suggesting here. It is as delusional as any racial revenge fantasy. It's Turner Diaries shit. Really, it is. It's psychotic.
Second of all,
how would it not be
I don't
the
know
reality?
how you can get away from how illiberal it is to not support equal rights for people, regardless of if they're Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Christian,
totally
etc.
with you. Look,
and then the other
totally with you, unless it's for Israel.
pieces.
But
I mean,
Hamas
listen,
doesn't support equal rights either.
But do you support?
No, that's great. That's okay. So what? You're worse than them? I don't understand. Well, it's worth noting that Hamas is more democratic than this guy is. I mean, in a purely like numbers game sense, in terms of like empirical effect in the world, Hamas could never be as undemocratic as this guy is. Not even close. We're comparing like neo-Nazis to a militarized resistance movement.
Two-state solution, is that your idea?
Look, yes.
So how do we get there?
No,
how do we get there? No, but listen.
No, but stop.
Hold on.
You get he's fucking mad. They're off the AIPAC bullet point sheet.
How do we get there at a time
when
you have settlements that have made it effectively impossible?
There's something I have to explain before all this makes sense.
In order to create a Palestinian state.
Look.
His last 40 attempts have failed, but this time, the 41st, he's going to hit with a ringer of a pro-ethno-state argument.
Back to what you said. I support a two-state solution. I am also aware of the fact
delusional, fantastical, not real. No one actually believes in this. Completely fake. The world's most ludicrous free healthcare scheme proposed by the least sane socialist is more doable than a two-state solution.
It's probably no longer possible. You didn't let me get that part out. Okay, which is really kind of important to this whole.
We are closer to free PhDs for every American and the complete abolition of debt than we are a two-state solution. Like, this is utterly fantastical.
conversation.
I would agree. Yeah.
And it's very disappointing. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around for why we got there. Yes, I would like to see a two-state solution. I am not naive, as you just described, to know that it's simply not on the table.
Paternalistic, uninterested in argument, uninterested in rhetoric, uninterested in politics. Just like here is why the Jews should get a new Nazi state. This is why they get to build a Fourth Reich. And if you disagree with me, you're the one who's being unreasonable.
Point. And that
listen here, little lady.
Problem. But the idea, again, that the easy solution is, okay, we get rid of the Jewish ethno-state, and the details.
Again, explicit defense for an ethno-state. I really feel like the average Democratic voter would be shocked hearing this, because so many people have spent so much time arguing against the idea that Israel's an ethno-state, and he just openly admits it. Like, how many times have you heard, Biden types, right? Centrist Democrat liberals act as though Israel's a democracy. He just out and says it. He's just like, no, it's an ethno-state. You can't get rid of the ethno-state. He just keeps saying it. He's open about it, almost like the rest of them know they're lying.
Of how Israel is currently running, their country. There are Arabs in the parliament, but there are parts of it that aren't. Okay, so we get rid of that.
Okay.
So what's your idea for what replaces that?
A liberal democracy with equal rights. Just pitching that one out there. Kind of like a Western democracy, founding fathers sort of thing.
Say you're not convinced that it would be a Hamas-run thing.
Well, I've offered that. Listen, I really honestly think that this is something for Palestinians and Israelis to decide. I don't know why it is the American taxpayers' business to fund this.
And again, that's why I voted for.
Sorry, Crystal. It's actually up to the Jews there to decide and for the millions of Arabs to endure. Sorry.
The Massey Amendment.
But what is actually your idea? Because if you're saying, you don't support a one-state solution, you don't support a two-state solution. There is no good solution.
He keeps saying wait and stop just to say that, by the way. Again, they don't believe in politics. They are technocrats put here by capital masters. They don't really believe in politics, which is why they get bored so quickly by the process of trying to convince voters what they believe in. The FLN was at one point a terrorist armed resistance group. Listen, I know this isn't exactly a novel observation, but I hope everyone understands, as has been made abundantly clear, that in the long arm of history, Hamas will be seen as the heroes in this conflict. Not because they didn't do anything wrong. They did, and they still do, but because Israel and everyone defending it represent such an overwhelming evil that getting caught in the hair-picking, over Hamas is going to be sounding like, well, did you know there actually were anti-Germanic racist, Polish gangs in the West? In the west of Poland that were bullying ethnic Germans before Germany invaded. Is it true? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably, I guess, on some level. You're not convincing a lot of people with these arguments. No one's going to care. In the long arm of history, Hamas will be seen the same way as essentially every other liberatory movement that killed civilians, which is to say, basically every liberatory movement, including the American War for Independence, all of them. Seriously, find me armed resistance movements that never had a civilian body count. It sucks, but it's also how all of these things get treated and looked at in the long arc of history. This is not going to be an interesting discussion in the long run. Yeah, Native American tribes absolutely killed American civilians. American westward expansionist settlers, so on, would go west, and then the American cavalry would go west, and they would find that homesteading villages were riddled with arrows. They'd been attacked by, and it's does that suck? Yeah, it is. But who caused the problem? Who started it? It's just not going to be hotly debated. Israel treats the Palestinians exactly the same as we treated the natives. Yes, current settler colonial project. It would have been unexceptional 200 years ago, but today it's not. Stop saying that Hamas brutally repressed the civilians of Gaza. Hamas was put in place by Israel. Israel both created the conditions for Hamas and then, unsatisfied with the fact that the Palestinian Authority was a somewhat sympathetic entity that could be reasoned with, they undermined the Palestinian Authority to put Hamas there. The Hamas was complaining about Hamas from the pro-Zionist perspective is like complaining about what happens to a pressure cooker after you've turned it on and then bolted the lid shut, and covered up all the air holes. You've created the conditions that allow for their existence. Haitian revolutionaries killed civilians. It's not a defensible position.
That's where you are. That is the reality of where we are now.
Right. And I'm
no good solution.
And I'm open to ideas, but let's understand the history of this. There's a great book called Palestine 1936 that described what was going on there. So you were coming to the end of the British Mandate. And you had, the Jews had been coming in since the 19th century. They'd been there a long, long time ago. And they were looking for, a place to be. The Palestinians were looking to drive out the British. And the Palestinians and the Arabs reached a conclusion in the mid-1930s and said, okay, Jews, you can stay, but you're not going to run anything. Okay. Jews said, no, we can't stay. So they started a civil war. Okay. And they fought. And then, of course, 1948, they got the country created. Another war was started. A war, and I know people say, well, this is a war to drive the Palestinians out. It was also a war to eliminate Israel, to basically kill Israel in the crib in 1940.
No. So the problem is that the formation of Israel as a plan involved the displacement and disenfranchisement of hundreds of thousands of Arabs. So it was more like the Arabs were living there, and then Britain came along, and they were like, yeah, we feel pretty bad about how all that went down in Europe, we're actually giving this land over to Israel. So how would you feel if that was your land? Like, you lived there, How would you feel if, and we're talking about Palestine here, like, this shit goes back a long time. Your family could have been there for literally, like, thousands of years going back. Like, it is the most your land that any group has ever had. Like, you've been there for a fucking while. And then Britain is like, actually, we're going to hand this over to, like, the most militant, most morally despicable Jewish militias imaginable, and they're going to be the ones to form their own ethno-state here, and it'll be owned by them. Because keep in mind, a lot of the Zionist militias that were operating in the area at that time were like fucking psychopaths. They weren't just the regular Palestinian Jews living there, and there were Palestinian Jews. They were like hardline far-right Zionist militias. Some of them, they launched terrorist attacks against the British too. Like, they were rabid Jewish supremacists. They wanted to kill the Brits as well. Some of them wanted to side with the Nazis or had Nazi sympathies. Yes, Leahy tried to ally with Hitler. Yes. You got the order wrong. Britain tried to mediate for a few years, but both sides kept attacking them. So they got tried and just ghosted them. Yeah, but like the British mandate was still to hand it over. Like, in the Arabs in the region saw the writing on the wall and saw that the European powers were conspiring to hand over the territory to somebody else, and they acted in legitimate self-defense. Like, can you really blame them given those circumstances? He frames it as Jews staying when indigenous Jews exist in Palestine already. Yeah, no. The framing here is completely fucked. And also, this like deference to history is immaterial when you look at the circumstances today. I've always said the history of Israel is a bloody and despicable one, but it's also irrelevant because they're the Fourth Reich today. Like, you go back and it's like, was there more moral nuance back then? Not really. Like, the Nakba was really bad too, but why run from now? It's like distracting from World War II by talking about the Night of Broken Glass, I guess. It's like, why would you, like, the talking about the lead up, we're just wasting time here. And I think that's what Adam Smith wants to do here as well. It's just waste time, really, There was like an opening salvo of civility fired in both directions. Both of them were trying to meet in the middle a little bit. Crystal understandably has like a big interview on her plate here. She wants to, keep him on the hook. But then the moment she even dares suggest Israel might not be an ethno-state, he loses his shit. He gets uncivil. He gets condescending. Listen here, little lady, etc., etc. The British tried to stop and slow Jewish immigration, and the Leahy launched an insurgency. Some of them, crazy shit, man.
48, and they fought and they fought and they fought and they fought. And at no point was there ever anything carved out for the Jews. And so the Jews have been fighting an existential fight. And
it's so hard for me to, because I know you consider yourself, I think, liberal. You would describe yourself that way, like in the classical liberal sense.
But there's no liberal option on the table here. That's what I'm telling you.
Why?
You keep saying,
but
illiberal Jews, we cannot have. Illiberal Palestinians are fine.
No, but
again, I'm telling you guys, like, this kind of equivocacy is something that I only hear from American neo-Nazis. I mean it. This, like, how can we give black people rights when these black people are reactionary? Like, this type of like racial grievance-based political rhetoric is something it's completely illiberal. It's ideologically like the opposite of liberalism.
Why should,
and I voted for it. It shouldn't.
Why should
I already answered
US
that question.
Taxpayers?
It shouldn't.
Okay, so and is that your answer for this particular amendment, or will that continue to be your position moving forward?
That's where we're at.
So you're done with the U.S. funding Israel?
I think
work it out themselves.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I got to say, I mean, look.
He's lying right now. That's why he's answering this way.
If tomorrow there's a peace agreement, okay, and they actually go forward with something where they create a reasonable alternative for the Palestinians in Gaza, if they actually stop what they're doing in the West Bank and get to peace in Lebanon, that may
get to peace in Lebanon. They're currently illegally occupying Lebanon.
Changed it. I don't see that happening, which is why I gave you the answer I gave. But again,
was he ever not lying during this interview? Yes, he refused to lie and say Israel wasn't an ethno-state.
And this notion that somehow there's a liberal option on the table, and how could we possibly support the illiberal state of Israel? What's going to come in there?
Appreciate his honest. Actually, he's really like quite honest as Zionists go. He's just like openly besmirching the idea of liberally. He's mocking her. He's like, what? You expect them to not be an ethno-state? You expect them to be liberal? Oh yeah, let's get a liberal solution over here. Let's get some free rights or whatever you hippies want. Like, it's welcome, my man, we got a liberal over here.
Okay, that's going to be liberal.
Well,
now, I'm with you on the taxpayer dollar piece.
You mentioned Rahm Emanuel's speech. You said you associate yourself. Yeah. If memory serves, he supports banking sanctions on Israel. You know, we sanctioned our ally at the time, South Africa. You support that?
I am one of the original co-sponsors of it's the West Bank Violence Prevention Act, which sanctions Israel for what they're doing in the West Bank. Yes, absolutely. It's wrong. It shouldn't be done. Yes, we should sanction them, and we should specifically sanction Smotrich and Ben-Gvir.
So the problem is, what is wrong with what's happening in the West Bank if you denounce liberalism and openly support apartheid and an ethno-state? Genuine, like this, again, like you are okay with the genocide. You are opposed to a liberal democracy and equal rights, and you are in favor of apartheid. What is your problem with the West Bank? What, the fact that it's illegal? That's your line? You're literally like, the Holocaust is fine as long as it's legal. This is what you have to offer. What's your issue with it? Like, I don't understand. It's totally incongruent with his other beliefs. Like he's mocking her. Like, oh yeah, liberal Israel. Huh? Yeah, okay. How are we going to keep an ethno-state going if it's liberal? You fucking idiot.
Who are advocating so much of this? Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to some of these broader disagreements. And I guess a good transition into that is, how much do you think the question of the relationship?
Yeah, remember, he thinks this way about us too. I have stopped believing in this like specific carve out where people can be liberal broadly, but Nazis on Israel. He's just a Nazi broadly. He is illiberal. I guess it would be more accurate to say that he doesn't really have any political beliefs and he just regurgitates what he's told to say and believe. But a person who feels this way about Israel could never defend democracy in America. Like, these people, all of them, all of the so-called liberal Zionists are only in favor of liberalism in America insofar as it's an existing institution that they know how to work around. Like, it to them is just the rules for the obstacle course here in America. They have no ideological love for it. They would never defend it. The only reason they have a problem with what Trump has done is because he's mixed up the rules. He's changed the way the game is played. But they're not, like, morally opposed to a different way of playing the game. They're totally fine with that. They just don't like the idea that the rules are being changed arbitrarily.
Relationship with Israel-Palestine is serving as a litmus test in Democratic primaries. You know, from my perspective, it's been very important because it served as a proxy for kind of a host of other issues and concerns that the Democratic base has with the Democratic Party at this point. But I'm curious your perspective on how important that has become and the reason why you think it has become.
So if it was always like this, they wouldn't mind? No. No, not even slightly. They are absolutely 100% not ideological defenders of liberalism. The problem is that liberals used to be ideological defenders of liberalism. As recently as like the 1960s, liberals, so-called liberals in government, people like, I don't know, LBJ, right? LBJ, not a perfect guy, but he did believe in liberalism. He was ideologically inclined to liberalism. He defended it, not just because it was the existing system, but it was because he had a moral stake in that system. He believed in it. But we're well past that point. The Democrats aren't like that anymore. In fairness, it's not just the Democrats, right? Like, a lot of Republicans are only really fascist because it helps them close the bottom line with their corporate interests a little bit faster. You know, I'm sure a lot of Republicans would be a-okay with liberal democracy if it was the fastest way to accrue wealth and power for the capital class. The only reason they aren't is because it's not. But yeah, no. I mean, in my opinion, like my naive opinion, people who represent liberal voters should themselves be liberal and not just regurgitate every talking point they're given by their masters. But yeah, it's naive of me, you know.
An important issue.
It's becoming more important. It's not the most important issue. The most important issue, it's not even close to the most important issue in these primaries. The most important issue that is driving the anti-establishment feelings in the primaries is two things. Number one, the belief that we have not effectively fought Trump. Okay, when you look at what really drives these people, yes, Israel's part of it, but it's also going after, you were part of the establishment, how come you didn't beat Trump? Now, I have a complaint here, and that is that a lot of the policies of the DSA and the left, open borders, defund the police.
Hey, wow, a Republican. How fascinating. Just straight up Republican talking points, just 1-to-1. Open borders? Oh, yeah, man, the DSA, yeah, open borders. Just... We're right back to 2016. Hey, how dare you suggest that I not do enough to fight Trump? Now, don't mind me as I word for word regurgitate his talking points.
The idea that you can't possibly spend enough government money.
Just one for one. Oh yeah, man. That's a DSA talking point right there. You can't possibly spend enough government money. Just it's on the policy position of every DSA candidate. Thank you. Hey, get you liberal over here.
Identity politics. A lot of
Come on. Are you fucking kidding me?
Those things are what gave Trump his power. And part of the reason those of us in the establishment struggled to beat Donald Trump is we were having to defend policies like open borders. Okay.
Yeah, yep. That's a real thing that happened back in 2016. Hillary Clinton had to defend open borders and defunding the police in 2016, and that's why she lost to Trump. Yep. And famous far-left candidate Joe Biden, after beating out all of the right-leaning primary contenders, of course, had to defend all those positions in 2020, which is why he lost to Trump back then. And now Kamala Harris, who famously ran super far to the left on open borders, what are we talking about here? He's blaming left-wingers for this? Dog, he would fucking pull the lever on the gas chambers and send all of us to our graves early if he was told to by a person with enough of a large enough bank account. Okay? These people are fucking evil. He knows he's lying here. These are just one-for-one Republican talking points. He will do or say anything to pin the blame on us. Democrats are perfectly comfortable losing because they don't care. It's like Haley Stevens in Michigan. Haley Stevens is not running a campaign against Rogers. If she wins the primary and beats out Abdul El-Sayed, it will not matter from the perspective of the people who bankroll her campaign whether she or Rogers wins. Her only job is to be a wall for the left. If Abdul El-Sayed wins the primary, he will likely go on to win the general. This would be the worst case scenario for people who represent both Stevens and Rogers. If Stevens wins, it doesn't matter whether she or Rogers wins because they're effectively the same person. AIPAC will just support whoever is most convenient.
And Trump walked right into that, all right? So the notion that it's just the establishment that led to Trump losing, I think, is a misplaced fact.
Can we pause there for 1 second? Go ahead, get to your critique.
And I certainly, but I also think that the establishment Democratic Party, I mean, the whole Joe Biden thing, nominating, even thinking about nominating Joe Biden in
because of his age.
Well, because he couldn't. I don't care how old he is. He just couldn't speak. Okay, he couldn't communicate clearly.
Yeah.
Whether that was because he was old or because he couldn't communicate clearly. It had the same effect. And then the second big issue is income inequality. It is absolutely true that whoever has been governing for the last 20 or 30 years hasn't done enough to create opportunity for enough people.
Yeah.
Those two issues, I think, really drove the feeling of let's try something different. Now, the question is whether or not the DS...
This really is the reason why Palestine is such an effective litmus test, because everyone who answers wrong on it is also perfectly in favor of the deep state raping everyone in this country to death. It's 1-to-1. Like, you open the argument with, actually, I'm pro-ethno-state, I'm pro-genocide, and then it turns out, wow, your positions are identical to those of a Republican. The idea that, like, the funny thing is, like, and it's so obvious on so many levels. The one time Democrats managed to beat Trump was with Joe Biden, the guy who, from his end of things, according to this guy, was uniquely bad at talking. I mean, Hillary Clinton was better at talking and she lost. Why Joe Biden won? And Joe Biden won during peak woke. 2020, Joe Biden's election was literally peak woke when Democrats had to do the most to defend indefensible leftist talking points. 2020 was the defund the police election. 2020 was the open borders election. 2020 was the election where Democrats were sometimes put in an awkward position, having to defend stuff to their left because they were trying to insincerely capitulate to, like, you know, left protester, George Floyd, BLM protest types. That was the one time that they won. So it's not only that he's lying, it's that the narrative he's proposing that blames the left for everything is the opposite of correct. It's like he could not have chosen a less explanatory narrative. Like, Biden won in spite of, like, for instance, the defund the police stuff really did not work out in the Dems' favor because it was always a kind of like badly formulated argument in bumper slogan form. But Biden won in spite of it. Again, the explanatory variable here is not explaining. It's the opposite of correct.
Agenda of, you know, is actually going to
centrism can't fail, it can only be failed. Exactly. Yeah, these people will never go up and like say just flatly the problem is the Democratic Party is insincere and evil. The reason fundamentally is that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are both different shades of corporate capitulation. They are both evil. The difference is that Republicans are better at appealing to and creating their own base because the average Republican voter is also evil. The average Democratic voter is not evil. So there's an inconsistency in our advocacy. Republicans can campaign on pedophilia, rape, and war, and their base will eat it up because their base is evil. Democrats are not like that. That's the problem. But they'll never admit this because, again, like, you can only fail centrism. Centrism can't fail you.
Achieve either of those objectives. Is that what's going to help us defeat Trump and MAGA? Is that what is going to build a more broad-based economic thing? But this is where I am very sympathetic with the DSA. I'm an economic populist. All right. I think we should rewrite the tax code to actually tax rich people.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
I've been working with a woman, Ray Madoff. She's a professor up at Boston College who wrote a book about how we built our tax code so that investors don't ever pay taxes. Let's change that. Okay, I'm very pro-union. Stock buybacks. Why do we have stock buybacks? They didn't exist prior to 1982.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know, man. You're like in favor of a Fourth Reich. I guess I just don't really trust your moral impulse on anything else. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, what do you kind of, yeah, man, Bernie at home. This guy's a real Bernie Sanders when no one's, when it doesn't fucking matter, huh? This guy's a real economic progressive when it doesn't matter and there are no stakes.
So obviously corporations can exist without them. On that agenda, I'm there. You know, part of the problem I have with the broader agenda is you can't have free stuff for everybody all the time. And another message that the left gave us in the last 10 years was
15-term incumbent, by the way.
The deficits and debts don't matter. Are you familiar with modern monetary theory?
Of course.
Yeah. It's absurd. The idea that we just spend as much money as possible is not a problem. Now,
the average democratic socialist isn't a believer in fucking MMT. That's a different thing. Those are two different theories. MMT is more of a, that's not even remotely how this works on any level. That you can't mix up MMT and democratic socialists being blasé about like Keynesian style government spending. Those are two different things.
I want to tax people. I want a better social welfare state. But to argue that we can have a better social welfare state because the debt doesn't matter.
On October 10th, 2002, Smith was among the 81 Democratic members of the House to vote to authorize the invasion of Iraq. In March 2012, he said U.S. troops had done amazing work in Afghanistan and that it was time to bring the troops home.
I think with
undermines the credibility of that argument.
With the decline of the U.S. dollar and potential risking of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, it's something we have to think more about now. But here's let
that's
me drill,
the understatement of the morning, by the way. But
let me drill down a little bit on a few things you've said. So you've argued both from most of your argument against the DSA thus far, I think you could characterize as an electability argument. You think
No. It's
no. It's because I'm Hitler. It's because I'm Hitler, and like Hitler, I target socialists first.
Bad policy.
Okay, so
I don't think having unlimited immigration is sustainable. I don't think.
So my question.
Just straight up Republican talking points. No one could just straight up.
Getting rid of the criminal justice system is a smart way to govern.
No one believes this. Literally, like this shadow boxing thing that reactionaries do, where they like act as though disagreeing with Bernie Sanders means they get to like shadow box every Twitter argument they've ever seen. Like, what is he even arguing about right now? What policy is he referring to? What specific policy is he referring to?
Not just electability.
So here's a question I have for you. So back in 2018, you worked together with Pramila Jayapal on a bill to abolish ICE, which is a key demand.
I worked with her on a. Here's what the bill did. Okay.
He sounds so regretful. He's like, yeah, I'm an insincere bastard who will pretend to be progressive when I know it won't lead to an outcome. I regret this one. If I had known abolishing ICE would eventually turn into a popular position within the Democratic Party, I never would have supported it. I don't want to actually change things.
It's a slogan.
It's a slogan. I was just virtue signaling. I didn't actually believe it, but trust me, I'm really economically progressive and all those other things I say I support that aren't going to happen. Incredible. Really fucking incredible, man. Jesus fucking Christ.
Article here from the Seattle Times, your local paper. U.S. Reps Pramila Jayapal and Adam Smith aim to abolish ICE, restructure immigration enforcement.
Exactly.
You were one of the Democrats actually who was in office when you voted for DHS.
Can I tell you what this actually does?
Creation of
so
ICE?
We can have an intelligent conversation.
Of course. Yeah. Well, number one, do you still support this?
Yeah. Let me tell you what it does.
Okay, because but you still support it.
That doesn't help anything, because what is this? Can I?
Yeah, of course. But first, do you still support it? And you can explain more in detail what it is.
Let me tell you what it is. Okay.
Yes.
When we created the Department of Homeland Security, we took immigration enforcement.
Remember, when he says we, he means we. He was around for that.
Away from the Justice Department, and we put it into DHS and created ICE.
Correct.
What this does is it puts immigration enforcement back at the Justice Department.
And
where it should be.
It's rid of ICE.
Right. Well, it gets rid of, but
that's my position too.
But
we're on the same page here.
Yes, but it doesn't get rid of immigration enforcement.
No one said it would. No one, literally zero humans who have said abolish ICE are saying that you should also get rid of Border Patrol. That's a different thing. No one said that. See, it looked like he's literally right now arguing that he doesn't support a thing he said he supports that's popular with the Democratic Party. I want you to understand the levels of insincerity that he's operating on. He virtue signaled and insincerely supported an abolish ICE position, which is now popular with Democrats. And now, in an effort to not be misconstrued as a person who's actually interested in protecting democracy, he is now arguing against the thing he said he supported, even though the thing he said he supported is now more popular with Democrats than it was when he said he supported it. Why? Because he doesn't actually want to abolish ICE. That's why. Because he doesn't believe in anything. This dude's a pure Republican. Look at his key votes. Yeah, I know. Voted to approve the invasion of Iraq. Voted to approve the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act. Voted against an amendment restricting the National Security Agency from collecting phone records of Americans suspected of no crimes without a warrant. His entire career history is one of supporting the MIC, and he's still doing it to this day. If you take a look at where his money comes from, it's defense spending. Come get your mans. Come get your liberal. Big Boeing guy. Washington's 9th District, big Boeing guy. A lot of aerospace stuff comes out of Washington.
Okay. So hold on. Let me hold you to account again.
Yeah.
Tell me which candidates, specifically, not a policy paper that there theoretically says, which candidates have said we should get rid of all immigration enforcement.
I forget the name. The woman who beat Andrew Espelot absolutely 100% said it.
Chevalier.
Yeah.
So you have one candidate who said that. Do you think that? Do you think that her views should be associated with everyone under the DSA label, or do you think that each person should be evaluated individually?
Many conversations with many immigration advocates, and I always ask them. And look, I'm in favor of a robust immigration system. I think what immigration enforcement is doing right now is an absolute crime. Okay.
I don't think you do. I think you're fine with it.
And it should be limited. I think we should go back to the Justice Department. That's what I said.
And you still support the bill that you put forward.
Absolutely.
So you support abolishing ICE.
But abolishing ICE is just a rhetorical.
He's so desperate to prove that he's loyal to the deep state that even when saying he wants to abolish ICE, he still can't say he wants to abolish ICE. He will betray his own beliefs, the beliefs of his constituents, the broad popular belief among Democratic voters, just in an effort to virtue signal to his corporate lobbyists. it's a genuinely a disconnect in the incentive structure of democracy so severe that you have to just scrap the system and build it back up from the ground. It's crazy. I'm trying to think of like applying this to there. Actually, hold on. There is an example I can think of this level of like insincerity even against public opinion, and it's fake right-wing pedophiles. There's a tendency I've noticed online for a lot of a very specific kind of far-right person to LARP pedophilia because they want to prove in a sort of vice signal context to their in-group that they're not like that they're like okay with all that. You know what I'm talking about? Like that very specific kind of Twitter-brained, like chibi reviews type or whatever. There are a lot of people out there on the right who are like interested in, I don't know, pretending. I'm trying to think of an example of this. I've literally seen people get made fun of for this. This isn't real, this world can be real. Pedophilia is, as we all know, like a right-wing associated issue. If you go on Twitter and you see anybody defending pedophilia or lolicon, 99% of the time they're right-wing, right? So because it's become like an associated vice signal, people on the right will performatively defend it even if they have no personal interest in it. In the same way that a lot of people on the right will performatively like indicate disgust at interracial relationships even though they personally don't mind interracial relationships. This happens all the time. Nick Fuentes does this. Nick Fuentes has literally gone on his show and been like, don't you want a hot 16-year-old trad wife? He doesn't want a 16-year-old trad wife. He doesn't want a wife. He's LARPing. Nick Fuentes isn't a fucking pedophile. Nick Fuentes knows his audience is full of pedophiles, so he's LARPing to them. This is the level of like vice signaling that Adam Smith over here is operating on. He is in favor of abolishing ICE, theoretically, but don't you ever tell him that, or he'll pretend that he's not, even though abolishing ICE is the popular position. By the way, he represents a 70% plus Democratic district. I know, he's Washington 9. He's like right next to me.
Like the label, but you support it, right?
But the problem is it means different things to different people. Okay.
No, abolishing ICE just means abolishing ICE. It's pretty straightforward. You abolish ICE and you put immigration enforcement back in the hands of Border Patrol, which is what it was back before under your stewardship, because you were in the House at that time. It was given over to ICE.
Okay, if you're talking about, no, let's go back to a Justice Department enforcement mechanism, that's fine.
That's what abolishing ICE is.
There are a lot more people who support eliminating enforcement. And let me tell you the question I always...
Who?
Let me tell you.
You're giving me one.
Let me tell you the question I always ask and the answer I always get.
Yeah.
From dozens of different immigration advocacy groups.
I'm not seeing an answer to that. Who?
I said, look, in order for this to work, you have to be able to tell me who would you deport and who wouldn't you let into the country. And they
No, abolishing ICE just means abolishing ICE, meaning that enforcement for immigration is now head back over to the Department of Justice rather than to the Department of Homeland Security. The idea that immigration enforcement should be handled by a Department of Homeland Security in the first place is ridiculous. No, you do not, in fact, have to carve out the entire U.S. immigration code from first principles in order to justify the abolition of a department that has existed for 25 years.
literally never answer that.
Okay, are
question.
they in Congress?
They are advocacy groups.
And here's my other question for you is, you know, you want to take the most extreme positions that you can find in the DSA platform, or that
Let me ask you this.
Let me finish my question,
Sure.
please. That one candidate, Daria-Lisa Chevalier, who I agree has positions that I think can legitimately be characterized as radical, right? You want to take those positions and you want to tar an entire group.
I mean, this guy is literally pro Fourth Reich, so I don't really know if he's in a position to accuse anyone else of being radical.
Candidates with them.
Well, let me ask you this.
Aren't you? Hold on. Aren't you effectively doing the work of the Republicans there?
Yeah, see,
by
and
saying
that's always
all
the
these
answer.
people,
That's
they're all
always the
so
answer.
crazy.
I'm
They don't
not-
want
The answer is like yes, by the way. Moderate Democrats like this, or like Haley Stevens, or hell, Jasmine Crockett, do far more work for the Republican Party than any DSA leftist or whatever who demands more from the party. In spite of like it's like objectively, this is just Republican propaganda reheated. If you listen to Adam Smith here and you took seriously his advocacy, his positions, his policy prescriptions, you would just vote Republican. If you genuinely believe that a big animating problem within the Democratic Party right now is that there are far left radicals taking it over who want to open the borders, then you are just a Republican. You are being motivated by Republican grievances. These are not liberal arguments. These are not Democratic arguments. You might as well be a Republican. These people do not care who you vote for. They don't care if they win. They don't care if they lose. They serve their corporate masters. That is it. That is the only thing they represent. I'm only just now remembering, by the way, that this person is being primaried or attempted in a primary by Kshama Sawant, the actually super far left, kind of radical, kind of annoying former Seattle city councilor. I hope she crushes him. I doubt she will, but you know, dog shit, nonpartisan jungle primary, making it so the Zionist guy is likely to win. Yeah, the 9th is not the, it doesn't help Kshama Sawant's running as an independent. Why don't they want as a Republican then? Because he's running in Washington's 9th district, which includes part of Seattle. That's it. Isn't Sawant also a Mamdani hater? She's just an annoying Twitter leftist. But anyone and everything is better than Adam Smith. Adam Smith is the worst possible route. You could find Republicans that would be better than Adam Smith because at least they wouldn't disenfranchise Democratic voters as much as this guy does. It doesn't matter. I like truly anything better than a Zionazi.
I'm not saying they're also crazy.
They don't want any borders.
Let me consolidate for you. Do you think? All right, you've done your thing. Let me do my thing.
They could easily characterize your abolish ICE position as just as crazy and radical as Daria Liza.
But I can't.
But I don't believe anything. How you can't say that about me? I don't believe anything.
Because the Justice Department's going to enforce. Let me ask you this: Joe Biden. His policy, okay, so not just one person in a platform, whatever. Do you think his policy was too lax in terms of border security?
I don't, but I acknowledge that politically, that helped fuel the rise of the return of Donald Trump. So let me say
now,
to
that
you,
is
though,
something that's widely supported.
But hold on a second. Which wing of the Democratic Party does Joe Biden come from? He doesn't come from the DSA left, does he? He comes from the establishment, and so to go back to one of the original.
Wherever he comes from, how did he?
He's just totally uninterested in hearing her out. By the way, again, the centrists can never fail; they can only be failed. This guy has done nothing for the people of America. His entire life, he's done nothing but a rubber stamp for capital. But still, you are the failure. If you actually try to make the system better, you are the problem. If you have a hope for the future of this country, you are the problem. This guy will never be the problem. He doesn't even consider himself potentially part of any solution. He knows what he does and what he is.
Well, he funded a genocide, so he governed in a lot of right-wing ways. But to go back to your original point about electability, I think it's very hard.
I never made a point about electability.
You did. You said that you thought that these positions, if you listen to your original answer, you said you thought these positions for the DSA were part of what brought back Donald Trump.
Fair enough, yes. But there's also policy concerns. But
okay,
yes.
But on the electability point, how can you...
Which is why he keeps bringing up nebulous shadowbox Twitter arguments rather than actual policies the DSA left fights for.
Argue that your camp within the Democratic Party has a lot of credence when it comes to electability when
I argued the exact opposite. I'm with you.
When Hillary Clinton loses to Trump, Biden wins by adopting some left-wing views, then loses to Trump. It was the establishment that propped him up, that forswore any sort of a primary. So how could it be the fault of the left that we're losing?
There's three things. Okay. I always say that the fall of the Democratic Party is a tragedy in 3 acts.
Okay.
Number one, we didn't do enough on the economic issues. And I think that Obama and Clinton get way too much of the blame for that. I think they really tried to get after broader economic issues, certainly the Affordable Care Act, a whole lot of other provisions that were put in there. But
yeah, the ACA, a right-wing pro-insurance company solution to our ailing healthcare system that basically did nothing but artificially drive down the cost of insurance, which shouldn't exist anyway, by forcing everyone to buy into it, thereby increasing insurance company profits that have only continued to skyrocket to these days. Thank you. This guy's literally voted in favor of deregulating the banking sector. This guy, again, everything he says is fake. The one time he's been held to an actual progressive position here, abolishing ICE, and he ran away from it as soon as it became even remotely popular. As soon as anything progressive can actually happen, he stopped supporting it.
Didn't do enough on economic inequality. Number two, the left came along and took some positions that weakened us. I'm not blaming one group. Everyone's like, well, you're blaming us. What about them? It's like,
you've exclusively blamed the left. At no point have you blamed the center in the Democratic Party.
There can be collective responsibility here, okay? It's not an either-or choice. Yes, we didn't do enough in economics, and then some of the positions of the left, and there were a lot of people running around. And when people say abolish ICE, do they mean abolish enforcement, or do they mean change enforcement? Okay,
they mean abolish ICE and return it to the way it was before the formation of Homeland Security. This is extremely well understood. It means what it means, abolishing ICE.
And that's where you get into that difficult issue. We've had criminal justice problems, you know. The defund the police movement did not help us in any way, and it was a thing.
And yet Biden won in 2020.
And everyone's, oh, no, we never did that, okay? And then three, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Those three things are what led to us. And every time, I want to bring them all in, but people say, well, if you blame the left, you're just being a Republican. Well, can't we learn as we go?
Well, my problem is not.
It's just all you do is blame the left with Republican talking points, and all the lessons you've learned are the opposite of correct. Like, you're deliberately learning the wrong lessons.
With your, I have my own critiques of the left, right? I think that I actually think the identity politics thing came out of the Hillary Clinton campaign and was a way for the establishment to beat back.
Oh, he acknowledges it. That's nice.
The rise of the Bernie Sanders left. No doubt the left embraced it. I have been a critic of quote unquote woke, although I hate the word at this point.
This has been really illuminating. Yeah, it's watching this and knowing this guy's been a congressman for 16 terms in a Seattle, in a very, very left, like Democrat leaning area. It really does like kind of show off why the country is falling apart, you know? Openly pro-ethno-state, pro-apartheid. Every criticism he has is directed leftwards, Republican talking points. Will pretend to be in favor of good things until they can actually happen, at which point he becomes their opponent. Just like, just monstrous. Truly monstrous, like genuinely unbelievably evil. Ideologically a void. Could be a Republican, could be a neo-Nazi, could be a gas chamber button pusher. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters to this guy. He takes his checks, and that's it. It does not matter. To be fair, without the jungle primary system, he likely would have been primaried. No, it's not the jungle primary system. It's the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party allows people like him to exist within it. If the Democratic Party had any kind of margins or litmus test or any kind of standards for its own members, like the Republican Party does, then he would not have been able to hold this seat for so long. The Democratic Party would have long since ousted him, would have backed the challenger. The state or the federal Democratic Party would have done something about him. He is allowed to exist because he does exactly what the Democratic Party wants him to do. That is it. That's the only reason why. The machinery of the party is strong enough to have ousted somebody like him, especially somebody as unpopular as him. It's not like anyone fucking knows or cares about him.
Identity politics. That's my, my position. I'm a class first leftist. So I have my own critiques here. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying when you caricature an entire wing of the party at this point.
Aren't you caricaturing the entire wing of the centrists and saying that we're all like,
no, because
I'm not caricaturing.
What caricature is she offered that's not correct? He said the left wants open borders and no police and wants to dismantle the entire criminal justice system. What a ridiculous, like, I got all my positions on the left from Twitter thing to say.
Trying to say you have the same views as John Fetterman. I don't think that you do.
And identity politics. And then she pointed out identity politics as we understand it was started by Hillary Clinton, and he acknowledged it. He said his problem with the DSA left is idpol, and then Crystal's like, well, I think Hillary Clinton did that actually. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Just doesn't believe in a damn thing. Nothing at all. No beliefs, nothing. Just a fucking void.
Or Josh Gottheimer, for that matter.
And I'm not saying they all have the same views
You
either.
are trying to take the views of, let's say, Daria Lisa and the DSA platform and saying this is what the entire DSA coalition stands for.
I'm just saying it's an issue and it's a challenge.
Let me get you to, so I think the most prominent example.
This is what I mean about the Democratic Party choosing to allow this guy in. You look at this guy's social media posts and he's like, just hosted the 3rd annual Deep State MIC Washington Aerospace Arms Contractor meeting. It went great. 5 likes. Oh yeah, man. I'm sure this guy has like a genuine wellspring of local support. I bet the people of Washington 9 fucking love this guy. Here is my deep state meeting. We talked about Palantir and I don't know, child fucking, whatever. Vote for me, like you did the last 15 times. God, look at him. Fucking DreamWorks eyebrow cock over here. We are witnessing a fascist take over this country. Dog, it's you. It's you. People like you have had more control over the direction this country has gone in than Trump ever has. Like the direction the country has moved in over the past 30 years, the actual existing Nazism that has seeped into the foundations, it's you. Trump is the aberration. You're the pattern. God, look at these fucking likes, man. What's the extent of term limits in the House of Reps you'd support? I don't really care about term limits. You could have 1, 2, 3 terms, whatever. It wouldn't really matter. Capitol still owns this country. Term limits aren't the issue.
of socialist governance in the U.S. right now is Zoran Mamdani in New York City. He got asked a question that's very relevant to this conversation about, what about people who are concerned about socialism or concerned about democratic socialism? Let me get you to respond to what he had to say. This is E2.
For all of the fear-mongering around democratic socialism, the best response is to show what it actually means. And what we've shown over the last 6 months is exactly that. We've shown that a city with a democratic socialist vision is one that paves more than 170,000 potholes, 50,000 more than the prior administration by this point. It's a city that has delivered the lowest recorded number of shootings and shooting victims and murders in New York City's history. It is a city that is on a pathway to universal childcare, saving thousands of parents more than $20,000 a year. And it's a city that is doing all of these things while fighting for the people who are often left behind. Workers, who we've secured more than $10 million for, tenants, more than $64 million. These are all indicators of what is so scary to a right wing that has built its entire power and framework on the idea of debating who should be left behind.
So is Zoran's version of socialism a version that you could get on board with, since he's really focused on the affordability pieces that you...
I am encouraged by what he's doing. And I think that form of trying to get things done, that's the other problem, is so much of the left, and certainly we experienced this in Seattle.
He's in favor of Mamdani because Mamdani won. Again, like, no, he literally does not believe in anything. It doesn't matter. It's meaningless. Absolutely meaningless.
Became an academic exercise. They were spending all day long talking about, the history of racism, as opposed to going out in the community and saying, these are people who've been discriminated against. Let's get them access to capital so they can start businesses.
Oh, yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm done listening to this guy because we've already understand the point. Like, this guy is a moral black hole, ideologically indistinct from everyone else, would pull the lever on the gas chamber, etc. He said he supported Thomas Massey's amendment. He's so proud to indicate he's not one of those crazy Zionists. He's in favor of Thomas Massey's amendment, the one that lost recently. Here's his statement on the amendment. Despite my support for Israel for over 2 years, I have been frustrated with Netanyahu's government and its total war approach in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, even at times Syria. I understand Israel has to confront threats to their existence and cannot let them go unchecked. Many of the people calling for a ceasefire on October 8th were people who wanted Hamas to succeed in destroying Israel. But Israel does not have to fight the way they've chosen to do so. So, like, the infinite Zioslave, right? Zionazi, piece of shit. He only supported the Massey Amendment because he knew that it wouldn't pass. If the Massey Amendment had a chance to pass, he would have opposed it. Last year, he said Mamdani doesn't speak for the party. Wow, what a surprise. He doesn't actually believe in anything. How shocking. That's crazy. This guy flip-flops in his beliefs more than Harris did. All of them believe in nothing.